Welcome to another episode. What are you reading? What are you writing? A weekly video podcast features creatives, writers, and readers when we come together to talk about books. I am your host, Karen E. Osborne, author of 4 novels and counting. I am so glad you're here. I think you're going to enjoy our next guest. Hello, everybody. I am so excited to introduce you to Twila Mason. And we met, it was interesting. We met at a book talk about marginalized characters who present are, because all of our characters are real. So
Yeah.
marginalized characters. And so you're going to be quite intrigued when you hear about Twyla's book. It's not the sort of book you read all the time, but you'll be really intrigued and want to read it. So she is an award-winning romance writer whose stunning, this is a quote from a review, stunning debut, Piece by Piece, is the no holds barred story of Aria and Luke, two young people born into a world of addiction and alcoholism who desperately want more from life than what they are given. Mason holds nothing back from her first propulsive chapter to the very last page. So doesn't that sound good? So tell me why you like tackling, you know, um, you know, topics and characters and societal issues of not the mainstream that we hear about all the time. Why do you like lifting up those societal issues?
Well, I think that representation is extremely important, and it's not just based on ethnicity or anything like that, but also mental health struggles. It's something that's still pretty taboo in today's society. People don't want to admit they go to therapy or that they have depression or anything like that. And I actually started writing this story during my second round of postpartum depression and anxiety. And
Mm.
it was kind of a form of therapy for me. Um, my son didn't sleep well, just like my daughter. She didn't sleep well either. And I was exclusively breastfeeding. So I spent the majority of my day trapped under a baby, so to speak. And I just needed something that I could do for me. And so I all I had was my phone. And so I started writing. And I think I was in a pretty dark place whenever I started writing the book. And so those themes just kind of came out in my writing. I put my characters through so many horrible things, and they were still able to rise above their situations. And that was kind of a projection of what I wanted my life to be like. I wanted to rise above the dark place that I was in. And it really was really therapeutic. And after that, I have had people talk to me in private about how it really meant a lot to them to see themselves represented. I had the child of an addict who's now an adult, but her father is in rehab again. And she came up to me and was telling me that, it meant so much to see someone in a book going through the same type of struggles that she went through. And it was validating and it was emotional, but in a good way. It wasn't traumatizing. Um, and so I just think it's really important to include those. And with it being a romance, you always get the happily ever after and you have the feel good moments. And it just shows people that are suffering from similar, um, you know, problems that they can have a happily ever after too. Like you can just
Yeah.
keep going and you can be happy.
Yeah, that is wonderful. Like you, I also write about difficult situations, all kinds of difficult mental health and physical and emotional, and yeah, you can have a happily ever after.
Yeah.
You can rise above. So that's inspiring. It did strike me when I was first reading about your book that this is a romance. You know,
Mhm.
from this dark topic that it's a romance, but that's also says so much about the breadth of the genre. There's so much one can do with a genre and not be pigeonholed. So
Yes.
that's really cool. Yeah. Um, so tell us, just give us a sense of the story itself. Tell us the premise of the story.
Okay. Well, we meet Arya on what's likely the worst day of her life. She comes home and finds that her drug addict mom has caused them to get evicted. And she doesn't have to worry just about herself. She also has to take care of her little brother, Ben. She's been the one that's always been there for him, more of a mother to him than a sister. And she has to find somewhere for them to go. They don't live in the best neighborhood. Staying out on the street is not an option. And as luck would have it, the only person that is willing to help is Luke Harden, who was the boy next door, but he had left town to better himself several years ago, and she hasn't heard from him since. And he's the only one that's willing to help. So that sets them on a path together. They face all kinds of obstacles. It seems like everything happens at once. I know I've had times in my life where it feels like literally can't catch a break. Everything happens at once, and they have to learn that they're strong individually, but they're even stronger together.
Yeah, that's great. That is awesome. Um, why did you decide to write in the romance genre? What was it about it that appealed to you?
Well, the funny thing is, I actually didn't set out to write romance. Yeah, so I started writing a women's fiction whenever I decided, okay, I'm actually going to make this into a book and do something with it. Um, it started out as women's fiction, but I'm sure you've had this happen. Characters kind of take on a life of their own and they make their own choices. I'm just the vehicle for what they want to do. And Luke's story just he just kept demanding more page time, and it just happened. As I wrote, I was like, okay, I think this leans more toward romance. So whenever I went through the editing process, I decided, yeah, this is going to be a romance, and so I edited it so it was closer to romance than women's fiction because it was kind of on the line. Um, and it's not a surprise to me, honestly, or it shouldn't have been a surprise to me that I wrote a romance because that's what I gravitate toward. I always have. And even as a kid, young adult romance, like that was, if it had a romance, even subplot, like I'm there. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, it was just that's what's in my head, so that's what came out.
Yeah, and that's what those two wanted. That's what
Yeah.
so so speaking about Arya and Luke, you told us a little bit about them, but what do you love about their character or their values or what makes them tick? What do you admire most about Arya and what do you admire most about Luke?
Well, Arya is so strong. She has never known a time where there's not adversity, but she just keeps going. She does what she has to do, and she doesn't really complain about it, at least not out loud. She complains to herself, but um, and she keeps going, and she's really fierce protector of Ben, and I can admire that about her. And Luke he's also a very strong character. He's very caring. kind of a cinnamon roll hero, I guess. I've heard that term floating around where, they're all sweet and gooey on the inside. Um, but he also is really strong. He's gone through a lot. And he's had some personal struggles. Um, Trying not to give any spoilers, but
Yes.
he's had some personal struggles that he's overcome, and I love them together because they're so supportive of each other. I think
Mm,
that's a huge key in a successful relationship is you have to support each other's dreams and aspirations, and they do that for each other. They're a safe place for each other, and so
mm,
I love whenever they're on the page together.
that sounds wonderful. That sounds awesome. So people always ask this question. I don't ask it at every interview, but people ask me so many times about how long does it take to write a novel, and kind of what is your writing process like?
So for my first book, it was really different than subsequent books because I started writing it. I wasn't planning on this is going to be a book. It wasn't until later where I was like, well, maybe I could actually make a full length novel. And then I got it done, and then I was like, well, I might as well see if I can do something with it. I wrote it. And so it was a longer process, and I had a lot to learn. I had many, many eyes look at it before I even thought of sending it to a publisher. Um, and, it was practice. I didn't know who to have look at it. Some I probably wouldn't send another book to, and then others like, yes, please read everything that I write and give me your information about it. And so the first one took a little bit longer, and it was a different process. I had a dream and I started out just writing that scene. It ended up being, I think it's chapter 3 in the book. Um, and it snowballed from there. And I just kind of added bits and pieces here and there, Frankensteined it together. I'm trying to be much more methodical with subsequent books because
Okay.
I'm actually starting with the idea of this is going to be a book. So, I'm not a plotter per se. I'm trying to incorporate more plotting. Um, but it always ends up changing. But I try to get a rough outline um, to kind of follow, but that always changes too because the
Those
characters have a mind of
characters.
their own.
Exactly. Exactly. I'm not sure how plotters do that because,
Yeah,
you
I
know,
can't.
my characters, I'm saying, no, no, we're going over here. We're going over here. No, we're not. Where
Yeah.
did that come from? It's,
And a
yeah.
lot of times I don't know the ending of the book whenever I start writing it, because I don't know what they're going to end up doing. Um, and the second book that I'm working on, I was completely surprised by the ending. I was like, oh, well, I didn't expect that to happen, but it did.
It's funny because my fifth book that's coming out in March is a murder mystery. And when I wrote my first murder mystery a couple of books ago, this will be my second murder mystery, I really did know who the murderer was. And, so there was some wending, but I knew how I wanted it to end, and I had to put the breadcrumbs. But
Yeah.
this one that's coming out in March, my beta readers and they would say to me, "Well, Karen, who did it?" And I said, "I don't know. I don't know. They haven't revealed themselves to me. I'm sure they will, but I just don't know." So,
Yeah.
yeah, you just don't know where things are going. So when you were, so that's what you're working on this. This is a series, right? And this
Yes.
is your second book in the series. Cool. And it's going to be Arya and Luke again.
Now it's a character that we meet in Piece by Piece is she gets her own book in this one.
What nice. So a sequel, but not
Yeah.
necessarily yeah, that is
Yeah,
very
but it's
cool.
its own complete story. But yeah, a lot of people ask me what happened to her. So now they get to know.
Good to know. Nice, nice. So when you think about your own reading history, what
Mhm.
authors or books do you think had a huge impact on the writer you are today?
Well, there's I read so many different authors, and all the romance authors obviously made me fall in love with the genre. Um, and as a kid, I read Lurleen McDaniel books, and they're young adult. And my sister always said that I read morbid books, but it's it was kind of the same thing. She wouldn't, she doesn't like drama, but you know, it had kids or teens with terminal illnesses or possibly terminal illnesses, and they usually had a little bit of a romance in there, not too much because it's young adult, but um, she tackled really serious topics, and that helped me. Because first book I read by her had a teenager with cystic fibrosis, and I went to
Mm,
school with someone that had cystic fibrosis, and so that kind of helped me process that, and that was really significant for me. And then whenever I had postpartum depression the first time, I read Down Came the Rain by Brooke Shields, and it's her memoir about her journey through postpartum depression, and just seeing myself at like what I was going through represented in that book meant the world. And there were several times where I would take a picture of a page and send it to my husband and say, like, this, I couldn't put this into words. This
wow, but
is
this
what's
is
in
how I
my head.
feel. Yeah,
Yeah. And so it meant so much. And I think that's why I include those kind of topics in my books, because I remember those two books specifically, and like I still have them. The one I've had since, I don't know, fifth grade, I think it was. I can't
mm,
even remember how long I've had it. And I still have it because it was so impactful, and seeing things that you're going through or someone is going through, it can bring so much understanding. Even though it's fiction, it can bring so much understanding to the person that's reading it.
really does. I remember with my first book, at every event, somebody would wait till everyone else was gone and then come up to me and say, the same thing happened to me, and you're the first person I'm even telling it out loud. And that
Yes, and that
happened a
means so
bit.
much.
It just makes you feel it's so validating, both as a human
Yes.
being and as a writer.
Yeah.
That yeah, that's amazing. So, are there any books that you've read recently that you can recommend to our audience?
Yes. So I just recently finished The Summer of No Attachments by Lori Foster, and it's a romance, but it deals with um, some mental health struggles. One of the characters, the side character, is an addict, and you don't see from her point of view, but you see the ramifications of her
Mm.
actions and how they're affecting the main characters. And one of them has PTSD, and it's not spelled out on the page, but you can tell that's what she has. And it's but it's also a fun, sweet romance, and like I really like having, I don't know, having the nice, like, kind of mix in with the not so nice parts of
Yeah,
life, because that's how
yeah.
real life is.
That's how real life is. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And say the name of it again.
The
The book.
Summer of No Attachments by Lori Foster.
Excellent. All right. So this has been a fun conversation. It's nice to see you again, even though I've only met you in a little
Yeah,
box
I know.
the first time and this time. It's been
Uh,
very lovely talking with you. If our audience wants to be in touch, they want to buy your book, they want to follow your progress with the second book that's coming out. They might want to just be in touch. How can they find out more about you, your books, be in touch?
yeah. My website is twilamason.com, and that's a good place that has I try to put out all my, you know, news of developments and everything, and it has all my links to my socials. I'm most active on Facebook and Instagram, but I try to be on most of the main socials, but those two are the ones that I'm on most. And I have a newsletter that they could sign up for. I only send it out once a month, so it's not overwhelming because I know my inbox is overflowing. So I'm sure everybody else's is too. And the there was something else I was going to say, and I can't think of it. So
All right. If they go to your website, they'll find all the things they need to know.
yep, and
And
I have my books and the links to all the different places that my books are available.
excellent, excellent. So I hope that you will follow Twyla. You'll go to Instagram, you'll go to Facebook, you'll go to her website, you'll sign up for her newsletter. And if you get an opportunity, tell her that you met her. And what are you reading? What are you writing? See you next Tuesday, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Bye.